We interrupt this broadcast for an emergency presentation of the I'm Trapped at Home Q&A special, already in progress. Kind of stuck in this apartment for the past week and I'm starting to go crazy, so I hope you're all staying safe. I hope everybody's being healthy and is able to take care of themselves and their families, and I hope that we're out of this very soon. As you can see, I'm recording from the comfy chair today. I haven't done this in a while, but my desk chair that I usually record in is falling apart, and I don't want to do a faceplant onto the floor while I'm trying to record this video. It'd be really funny if I did, but I'm not going to today. So I decided to do something different, and this is an idea I had a while ago. I thought I would give a special thank you to all my patrons, since they're being very generous and supporting me. By doing a Q&A that was led by them. So I asked all my patrons on Patreon, and that's patreon.com/MistareFusion, because I still gotta eat too, you know. I asked them a couple months ago to send me their questions, and I've collected all of them, and I'm going to answer every single one of them today. So, why not just get started then, huh? Alright. Since the patrons were a smaller number of people than my overall viewing audience, it's a smaller number of questions, which means that I am going to try my best to be as detailed and forthcoming with as many of these as possible. So hopefully this is something you will find entertaining. My 10,000 subscriber Q&A went over pretty well a few years ago, and I'm almost at 17,000, so that'd be cool. I did ask for these questions back in January, I said. I don't know if you can hear that. That's a pretty loud motorcycle out there. Glad to see the world continues on, even though they're interrupting my video, which I don't care for. Anyway, I asked for these back in January, and I didn't mean to sort of sit on them for this long, but like I said, now I have plenty of time. But once I asked for them, then I sort of got really singularly focused on the intro for the new Dragon Ball dissection videos. And I always hate sort of leaving things for that long. But thankfully everybody's response to that intro has been very positive, so I'm glad you guys appreciate it. I'm glad you were patient with me in terms of getting that done. I always want to try to put out the best quality product that I can, even if it does take a while, so just want to say thank you all for that. And now, if I can get focused on this, here are the questions for the Q&A. Alright. Winter's King asks, if you were to rewrite Super, how would you do so with each arc respectively? That would be Dragon Ball Super, in case there are any Dragon Ball fans, non-Dragon Ball fans watching this. Okay, that's an interesting question. It's gonna be somewhat dependent on how much I remember of Super at this point, because it feels like it's been a while and never really left that much of an impression on me to begin with. So Battle of Gods arc. I don't know if I'd change anything about that. Other than making sure that the animated version included a reason as to why Pilaf and company are kids. That drives me crazy. They never put in an explanation for that. So, because, as I've said repeatedly on various social medias and who knows what else over the years, I don't see a reason. If you're gonna make an adaptation of something, it has to stand on its own 2 feet. If you're gonna say, oh, well, you can just watch the movie and find... Well, I need to watch the movie to find out a crucial plot point in it, then I'm not going to bother watching the TV version of it, because it's broken. It is broken! Alright, but other than that, it's pretty good. The Resurrection F, Revival of F, the Frieza thingy. Okay, the biggest thing I'd say about this, is make sure that this wish means something. It's the worst wish in history, and it's only used to just stage a round 2 fight between Goku and Frieza. Who cares? Seriously, who the heck cares about that? Do something creative with it. Really make... first of all, don't just ram Frieza down our throats. If you're going to bring him back, make it count. Make it something special, but do something with it. Have some creativity to the wish. So you have, you could have him, wish to take Goku and everybody else who fought him out of the equation, like have them erased from existence, so that they never managed to stop him in the first place. And then so that the remaining characters, the ones who weren't on Namek, have to face off against Frieza. A Frieza who's had the next 20 years to conquer Earth, and just stuff like that. Give Frieza his own dystopian version of Earth, or there's so many possibilities you could do to really hammer in Frieza having taken over everything, or Frieza really having done something with the Dragon Balls to really turn the world on its head. Instead, it was just bring Frieza back to life so we can fight again. It's lame. It is so lame. I don't know. Universe 6, that's the next arc, right? I don't even know what I would say about that because I remember so little about it. So I guess I'd say make it more memorable. Give me something I care about. I don't know, something I won't have forgotten 4 years later. Has it been 4 years? Yeah, I guess it has. The only thing I really remember that Goku and Vegeta training in the big buff, poofy sumo suits. I don't know. Who cares? The Future Trunks arc. I'd still say this is probably the most interesting arc that Super ever did, but it's seriously flawed as well. I think his biggest problem is there's no real sense of movement here. For all I complained about the Cell arc, a lot of things happened there. You're in this city, and then we go here to fight, and then you ran away, and we're going to the lab, and this person got killed, and now we're having to regroup, and we're on a highway, and then the cells, you go into different cities, and then we're going to the wilderness to find this old time machine, and going to an underground lab, and the islands, and the ring, and it's like Future Trunks arc just seems to be like, we're going to the present, and then we're going to the future, and we fight amid some buildings, and we go back to the present, then go back to the future, back to the present, and back to the future, and back to the present, and back to the future, and it doesn't feel like there's anything really happening. It's just set up all the chess pieces, and then play around, and then knock down all the action figures, and let's reset the board and come back again. It's not much happens really. It starts to blur together because it just feels like they get their butts kicked and they come back, and then they lick their wounds and they try again, and it's all the same place, the same boring locations. I don't even know. But I also say, do something with Trunks and Mai. I mean, something that justifies this being a relationship. It's sort of like with the Pilaf thing in the Battle of Gods arc, is that the series does not seem at all interested with telling any of these stories. It's enough to just sort of have them there and just fill in the gaps, whatever. And I know Dragon Ball's not really overly concerned with relationships, but this is a relationship that really, by any logical, reasonable account, shouldn't exist at all. It's a time-displaced future warrior, an age-displaced villain lackey who's suddenly a completely different character now. It's like, do something with that. Like, explain how they know each other. How did this? What happened to Pilaf? What happened to Shu? Why is she? How is she changed into such a radically different person? Like, what happened to this cowardly villainous person? Like, she could be the most fascinating character in this arc if they didn't just treat her like random love interest. It really just feels like, someone saw that, little Trunks and little Mai, they have a little cute thing going on here, so wouldn't it be fun if their future versions did too? And they didn't even think about the fact that she really isn't even a kid, but the future version of Mai never addresses that at all. Like that's a pretty screwed up life to have, and the whole time it's just, okay, they're a couple, whatever. It's like she could have been anybody. She's just the most generic character. It could have been Lunch, for God's sake, really. It could have been Erasa, from Gohan's high school. It could have been just any random female-bodied person, and you could throw her in that role and it wouldn't make the slightest bit of difference. And that was like the most infuriating thing for me. It's like, you have this, do something with it. All right, Universe Survival. I mean, yeah, I've complained about this one heck and back, and thankfully it's been 2 years since I've seen it, so the memories are starting to fade. So, but I'd say just give it and again, let's be clear, I have not read the manga version of most of this yet, so I'm speaking solely on either the movies or the animated adaptations, because I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. So if I'm saying things that actually were addressed in that version of events, one, please don't tell me, because spoilers, hey, come on. And also, have a little bit of slack for me, because I just don't know. But I say a tighter focus, definitely a tighter focus on characters. Trim down the fighting by, maybe you cut like a dozen episodes out of that. It just got so long and boring. Get rid of Jiren entirely. Just drop his sorry ass. Get rid of him. Get him out. Just screw him. Forget he ever existed. He's boring, he's bland, he's terrible. He's just the worst antagonist Dragon Ball has ever had, period. And just focus completely on Top. Just him. Like, he was great. He was fantastic. Don't screw him over. Make him the lead. So, yeah, that's what I'd say about that. Frankie asks, out of all the, hey, let's just reuse this set from another show/movie and call it a planets of the original Star Trek, which one is your favorite? I like this question a lot. This is fun. I'm assuming that you're talking about like when they use a studio backlot or something, something so they can do a period piece, or a planet that looks like 1950s Earth or whatever, as opposed to when they just sort of hang a cyc in a studio, put some colored lights on it, and call it a planet outside planet. So if that's the case, I would have to say probably Patterns of Force. For anyone who doesn't know, that's the Space Nazi episode. It's when the Enterprise goes to this planet that a Federation historian has been on, and apparently he decided that the society was in collapse, and thought that the Nazis were the most efficient system of government. And if he could just remove all the bad stuff, all the racism and murder and eugenics and all that stuff, then it would help this society get back on its feet. Instead, they just turned into regular old Nazis, and they went back to the killing and the swastikas and everything. So it's basically just Kirk and Spock go to a planet, and it's filled with Nazis. And Star Trek likes to dip into the Nazi well every so often, apparently. So I don't know. It's just one of those things that it's hilarious. It's weird. But it also, it has a better looking production value than a lot of classic Star Trek, just because, they are on location. Well, they're on a backlot, so they are actually outside as opposed to in a studio with colored lights. They have access to all all the period costume drama stuff, so the costumes look legit. So I think it just ends up looking really more or less accurate. So I like that one. Douglas asks, if you were to make a movie for Dragon Ball set anywhere in the manga canon, how would you do it? That's tough, because honestly I probably wouldn't, just because I can't really think of any arc outside of the first story arc that is short enough to successfully be adapted into a movie, and even then, the first Dragon Ball movie I thought was really rushed, and Dragon Ball Evolution has tried that arc, and there have been a lot of poor attempts at adapting that arc, and it just seems weird to me to jump in from anywhere other than the beginning, although it pains me to admit it, but starting from the Saiyan arc wouldn't be terrible. That one might work as well, but it seems so wrong and dirty of me to say that, because then you're starting with Raditz, and we've been struggling for forever to get people to recognize material before that. But it isn't a bad place to start a story if you're not going to do the first arc. But I would say, rather than using the manga canon, do something like Mystical Great Adventure. Like that I think is probably the best type of adaptation work that Dragon Ball has done at trying to port its story, or the key essential parts of the story, into movie form. And just really sort of be creative with the source material and put things in ways that would fit within, a singular piece of work. But then again, you can say the same thing about Dragon Ball Evolution. They kind of did something similar, to be perfectly honest, and most people think that didn't work out terribly well. So, I don't know, that's really the best I have, really. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. Pranjal asks, you've done movie reviews for things like a Superman movie and the Batman television series. Any plans on reviewing the Spider-Man series, cartoon or otherwise? Well, I'll be honest. I probably need to know more about Spider-Man. Primarily know him from the Raimi films. I know a bit more than that. Like I know that, in the comics his webbing is not organic, but those were big when I was a teenager and in college. But I didn't really. I had a few Spider-Man action figures as a kid, but I never really. Also, I owned a reproduction of the very first Spider-Man story, the very first comic. So that was pretty cool to have. But I never really followed Spider-Man in the comics. I was pretty much exclusively DC. I never really got into Marvel heroes in any real appreciable sense. Never watched the cartoons, although I did have. There's a McDonald's toy. They had a McDonald's toy line, Happy Meal toy line, based on the '90s cartoon, and I had like the Peter Parker who turns into Spider-Man action figure. It was like Peter Parker on one side and Spider-Man on the other side of the head. I don't know, but I do know. What I do know about that is that Christopher Daniel Barnes was the voice of Spider-Man in that, and I love him because not only was he the voice of Prince Eric in Little Mermaid. He also played Greg Brady in the 1990s Brady Bunch parody movies. So, yeah, that's groovy. Okay, Woov asks, do you have a preference for any DB voice actors or a favorite? I don't know if there's a single member of the original cast I don't love. It seems like saying Nozawa would be the obvious answer. I don't like to give the obvious answers, though, so don't put me in a situation where I have to give obvious answers. But they're all great. Tsuru is great as Bluma, and Furuya is great as Yamcha, and Miyauchi is fantastic as Kame Sennin. You can't ask me to name just one. I said I'd try to be in depth with these. I guess in terms of distinctiveness, I mentioned Takaguchi Junpei in one of my Freeze Arc videos over Christmas. I think it was on Christmas. Just because his voice for Uranai Baba is so incredibly distinct. It's a voice that just you really can't hear anywhere else, and that has never been matched again since he stopped playing the role. That definitely stands out for me. But I don't know if I call it my favorite, just because it's such a minor character. It's just really distinctive for me. And of course you have Nakao as Frieza, Horikawa as Vegeta. I really could just literally list the entire main cast of Dragon Ball, and that sounds like it'd be pretty boring though. But they're like my children. I gave birth to them. I gave birth to every single one of them through my vagina-is. That was really weird because they started recording Dragon Ball before I was born. About a week before I was born, so my mother was very confused at the time when she started giving birth to all these Japanese voice actors through me. It was weird. It was weird. Let me tell you, it was weird. We have some really bizarre family reunions. So you cannot ask me to choose just one, because they are my Vagpinina-is children, voice actors. God, I've been in this house too long. Sis Nerd asks, What's your favorite DB story outside of the original run of the manga? Could be filler, a movie, something from GT or Super. Could be DB minus, LOL, whatever. See, why you gotta hurt me like that? Why you gotta hurt me like that? DB minus. What's wrong with you? That's also a really difficult one for me because there's a lot of filler that I like. There are a lot of things outside of the manga that I really enjoy. So I always feel like, especially almost any favorite type questions, it's like you could ask me on Monday and I give you something a different answer than I gave you on the previous Wednesday. Because it all just sort of feels like what I'm in the mood for, what it is I'm currently thinking of, what it is I remember at any given moment. Because there's a lot of good things. So, but right now I'm going to say I really like the that time I got reincarnated as Yamcha manga. That's one of the real standout gems in modern Dragon Ball, and it's really just sort of a side story anyway. But in case you don't know about that, excuse me, a little phlegm. In case you don't know what that's about, there is like a few issue, I think it's three issues maybe? I can't remember. 4? I don't even know what it is I'm talking about. Or a high school student injures himself, takes a head injury, and wakes up and finds himself in the Dragon Ball manga as the character of Yamcha, and has to navigate through important parts of the series with knowledge of future Dragon Ball events in place. And he is savvy enough to know the string of bad luck and bad experiences that Yamcha ends up having throughout the series, and uses that knowledge of various training methods and gods and places to go in order to basically he sequence breaks Dragon Ball. He sequence breaks Dragon Ball, going to masters that wouldn't be shown in the series, or power-ups that wouldn't be shown in the series until much later, so he can build up Yamcha, not get killed by the Saiyans, and hopefully not lose Bulma to Vegeta. But it turns out that he's not the only random person who's taken a whack on the head and ended up in Dragon Ball. And so things sort of escalate from there. And it's really funny. It's really well drawn. It's by Dragon Garo Lee. And it's a really it's fan servicey, I guess you could say, but in a smart way, in a way that works for its story. It's not just it's not what I would typically consider fan service in terms of just sort of meaningless, here's a dangly, shiny object to throw in front of people thing, It's actually a story that's built around knowledge of Dragon Ball, and I think it's kind of clever. Jibmata asks, what's your favorite magical girl anime or manga? Well, I never really watched a lot of magical girl stuff. I really like the concept of magical girls more than I actually really watch any magical girl stuff. Probably Sailor Moon by default, because it's the most I've really seen of any magical girl stuff. I actually have a Sailor Moon calendar this year. So, I mean, it's definitely a girl group I'd want to be a part of. I guess I kind of have a little bit of a soft spot for Pretty Sammy. That's the Sasami-based Tenchi Muyo. The Tenchi Muyo Sasami-based magical girl spinoff. Though I haven't seen that in a very long time, and I barely recall what happens in it. But that was really more because I was a Tenchi Muyo fan than, necessarily... but yeah, I like the trappings of magical girl stuff. The transformations, the outfits, things like that. I don't really know if I can give a more detailed response than that, just because, I don't know. You know me, I love the facts of life. That's why I'm wearing a shirt, Facts of Life based T-shirt right now. I know when Charlotte Rae, who played Mrs. Garrett, passed away, I found this image somebody had made, this parody, putting the Facts of Life characters into the first X-Men cover, turning them into X-Men, various X-Men. That'd be my favorite magical girl series right there. If they turn the Facts of Life characters into superheroes, I'm just saying. Okay. Nicholas asks, can you think of a dream Dragon Ball game you'd want to see? Well, not really that much into Dragon Ball games, all that much. So if I had one, it would just be something completely, totally off the wall, like a DDR clone based around that song and dance number that Jackie Chun and Goku do. That'd be fun. Or how about a workout sim taught by Kame Sennin, you know? I think that'd be fun. Mario's Time Machine, but with Trunks. See, I just refurbished my NES the other day, and so I've been playing a lot of my old NES games since I've been in isolation. And one of them that I got as a kid before I knew any better was Mario's Time Machine, because I loved time travel because I was obsessed with Back to the Future. And I'm like, oh my god, it's a game where Mario has a time machine. This is gonna be great. It wasn't that great, but I did go ahead and play through the whole thing again, and I managed to beat it in about half an hour. It's just finding artifacts, going to various points in time, and dropping them off so things can happen. Like, oh look, I brought the U.S. flag back to the moon. And, oh, here's Lincoln's stovepipe hat because he won't deliver the Gettysburg Address without it. You know, stupid stuff like that. So, put Trunks in there. I want to see him deliver Lincoln's stovepipe hat. Why not? Alright? That's a good one. Willem asks, would you rate the TV arcs of Dragon Ball differently to the ratings you've given the manga story arcs? As you've commented in DBD TV that sometimes the anime cleans up some mistakes from the manga, but also sometimes creates problems the manga didn't have. I'm not gonna lie, I always dread this question because I get this one a lot, and I've never really been able to pin myself down on an answer to that. And I think it's because overall, despite certain things, the storylines are essentially identical. And obviously that's what's most important to me. So I never really know if there's enough... There's rarely anything that's bad enough in the adaptation to drag the story down enough to, you know, seriously harm it. And likewise, I never really think there's anything anything that buoys up an arc enough to really bump it up a score. There are a couple of examples, maybe. Perhaps I might bump TV Frieza down to 4. And therefore 23rd Budokai would be up to 5. Because I don't think there's any way you can honestly argue that 23rd Budokai is adapted worse than Frieza is. But still, the Frieza storyline I think has a slightly better story to it. And as I've sort of, you know, joked about, like, Saiyan arc with all the filler might be enough to make it a 10 for me, and might bump Red Ribbon out of its top spot, but I don't know if I'm willing. I still don't know if I'm willing to commit to that, because I still think both animated and manga Red Ribbon are really, really, really good, and I really didn't get people saying that the Red Ribbon Army arc animated version is really bloated. I thought it was entertaining all the way through, really. So I don't know. That's probably the best I can give you. I don't think anything else. I don't think would really change around all that much. I don't think it would change around at all, I should say. All right. Victor Perez asks thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. And I told him that I might not use this question because I've been planning to do a video on Rise of Skywalker by itself, a vlog like I did with Last Jedi. But I don't really know if I'm... the more I think about it, the more I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a video on this. Because The Last Jedi just so reinvigorated my love of Star Wars. It got me excited about Star Wars again, enough to sit down and talk about it for an hour, enough to seek out the Star Wars radio dramas and start listening to them. You know, I was really, really excited about Star Wars again. And then I saw The Rise of Skywalker, and I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Who cares? No, I tweeted about it when it came out a little bit. And since we're, you know, past, I think it's fair to say we're past the point where spoilers are that big of a deal. But here's your warning, just in case. I I could be a little more detailed at the very least. I don't want to do a whole video on it, but I can at least answer a question, a question on it. I did not have a bad time watching it. I hesitate to paint with too broad a brush on fans, but I felt like a lot of people judged Last Jedi on what they wanted it to be, and I didn't want to make that same mistake. Because I knew well enough to know that they were going to backpedal on some of the Last Jedi's elements, which I still think was a terrible, terrible, terrible mistake. And not just because I liked those elements and wanted to see them redone, although that is a big part of it, but also because the movie feels like a really big apology to itself. Or, sorry, I should say an apology for that movie, which I really don't care how you felt about that stuff. Having about half of your movie undo the previous movie, and not for any sort of artistic means or for storytelling, but just to say, oh, you guys were mad at us, I'm sorry, here, we'll just say this, that wasn't right, and that was a lie, and I don't, it felt really mealy-mouthed. It felt like a big waste of time. And in a sense, it made those two movies, both of those movies, a waste of time. But what was there? I sat in the theater for 2 hours. I didn't hate it. There were some good character moments. There's always good banter in these sequel movies, I think. C-3PO was enjoyable with his mind wipe and everything. Babu Frick, hey! He was fun. So, for what it was, just for 2 hours of a bunch of ragtag people fighting an evil empire, it was okay. But they have really, really dried up that well. So, how many times... I don't want to see a bunch of ragtag rebels fight an empire anymore. I just don't care. It's gotten boring. And this was just a very sloppy story. Obviously, the one thing I cared about the most, I'm like, you can undo everything else in The Last Jedi. You can bring Snoke back. You can bring Kylo Ren's helmet back. You can do whatever you want, really. Just the one thing. That's what I was bargaining. Like, I was silently bargaining with the movie the whole time I watched it. I was going, just the one thing, hold on to this one thing for me. Just don't undo Rey's parents being nobody. And technically, they didn't. But they still did the same boring, predictable, tired, let's make a bad guy your relative thing. So, oh, no, your parents are nobodies, but their parents, oh, your grandpa was Palpatine. So it really just comes back once again to, no matter what trilogy, you can't think of anything to do with, with villainy. Palpatine's been an excuse ever since the first trilogy. It was because, originally the Emperor was supposed to be, from a long line of emperors, and maybe he was corrupt, but maybe he was a puppet at this point, that the bureaucrats had taken control of him. In the first draft of Empire, he was supposed to be like in gold flowing robes, and he very much was a politician type character. It wasn't until Lucas made the whole, oh, Darth Vader is Luke's father thing, and I want to redeem him, that there was like, oh, but we got to make the Emperor the really evil guy, the one who's pulling the strings, so that Vader can seem more sympathetic. And that's kind of... Palpatine's a great character, don't get me wrong, but it really does feel like a crutch at this point, where it's like, oh, we need an evil, Palpatine's behind it all. So we go to the prequels, and it's like, oh, he's a senator, and he's also evil, and he's controlling the war, and he's playing both sides against each other. And so we have another trilogy where Palpatine's behind it all. Now we have the sequel trilogy, and he's supposed to be dead, but he comes back again. Oh, but, we couldn't think of what to do, so Palpatine's behind it all. And it's like, God, is there any other Star Wars plot besides Palpatine's behind it all? I'm so sick of Palpatine being behind everything. I do think, all that said, because it meant a lot to me for Rey to be nobody, to not be related to anybody, to just be a Force-sensitive individual who's not related to any of all of this other crap that's going on, that she forges her own path in her own story, and that she learns that it's okay to not know who her parents are, that it's okay that they're not coming back for her, that she doesn't have to stay on Jakku, she doesn't have to stay focused on the past. She can move forward just being her, just being Rey. Just being Rey is good enough, you know? But I will admit that there at least was something interesting there in terms of Rey worrying about being evil. It felt a bit more real than Luke. I never really got an impression that Luke was going to go to the dark side in the original trilogy, especially because Palpatine was so unsubtle about it. I think I probably complained about this before, but the whole, "Oh yes, you'll turn evil if you do this thing," and Luke's like, "Well, I don't want to be evil," and the Emperor's like, "Yes, but if you do this, you'll be doing exactly what I want you to do," and Luke's like, "Well, I better not do that then." And then, like, you know, once he screws up, he's like, "Oh my God, I hate you so much, Darth Vader, I'm gonna cut off your hand and kill you." And the Emperor's like, "Yes! Yes, do the thing I want you to do, and that will make you turn to the dark side." And Luke's like, "Oh my God, what am I doing? Oh, thanks for telling me that, otherwise I might have gone through with it. Holy crap, if you had just been quiet for a few more seconds, I totally would have killed him, and I would have been evil." You know, so I think there was more angst with Rey. I liked her fantasy sequence of her being all, you know, evil and everything. It worked a bit better with Rey. I do think they kind of wussed out, though. I really wish, as much as I'm sick of them killing off all the original trilogy characters, most of them for no, not most of them for no. I enjoyed Han's death. I thought Luke's death was great. Leia's death kind of sucked, but really, what are you going to do about that? Well, my opinion, as I said, 2 years ago, was just don't kill her off. Just have her retire off screen somewhere. Let her go to the planet of Hunky Cabana Boys, and enjoy retirement. But as much as it bothered me, but it was in a good way. It's good when a movie bothers you in the right way. I really liked when they captured Chewbacca, and then Rey the ship is flying off, and Rey's trying to bring Chewbacca back by using the Force to hold the ship in place, and then eventually she loses control and fires lightning at it, and the ship explodes, killing everybody on board. And then 10 minutes later, they show that Chewbacca's actually fine. He was on a different ship the whole time. Whatever, you kill people who don't really matter. Whatever, even ignoring the whole certain people don't matter thing. In terms of Star Wars, I didn't want Chewbacca to die. I did not want Chewbacca to die. But once they did it, or once it seemed like they did it, I was like, okay, you know what? This is good. This actually makes sense. This is the right thing to do here, because that's heavy. That would have really propelled that plot line forward. It ties into to Luke's comments to her when he's training her. You didn't even try to fight back against the dark side. It's just sort of this uncontrolled power, this uncontrolled anger, and then she has to live with that guilt. And it's always it's breathing down her neck the entire rest of the movie of, oh my God, I did this thing. I did this thing, and because of that, somebody I was trying to help died. And now I need discipline. Otherwise, I'm really gonna fall to this. And that's the best they've ever done. Any of these movies have ever done. Sorry, it didn't actually happen that way, did it? So that would have been the best these movies have ever done, in actually giving a real, tangible threat to somebody falling to the dark side. But overall, it just didn't really leave that much of an impression on me. I went back to see Last Jedi in theaters again. I went out and bought that sucker immediately when it came out. Rise of Skywalker, oh my God. Okay, also, Rose. What the heck happened to that character? She's barely in it. She's barely in the movie, and it once again just feels like Disney got bullied into this, they just caved to pressure, social justice warriors in my Star Wars, and Rose, I don't want her in the movie. So, she's, I think someone timed that she's in the movie for less than a minute! And instead, they add a different girl for Finn to hang around, who I don't even know her name! I thought it was a cool idea to show other stormtroopers who had escaped, but they didn't do anything with it. She's just sort of there, filling up space. The same thing with the girl that Poe has, the Carrie Russell character. I don't know her name either. It's like, stop. Don't have room for Rose in this movie. Why are you throwing in all these other random useless characters? I just, it was a very sloppy movie, very sloppy, and and the whole thing just made the whole. I always said that I had reservations about them. Sort of, it felt like they were redoing the whole Empire Rebel conflict from the original trilogy, and I really wanted to know more about what makes it different this time. And because of that, it sort of felt like, okay, you have until the last movie to really make this whole plot line work for me, and ultimately it didn't. I've been talking for too long; my throat's getting dry. They didn't make it work. I missed Solo in theaters just because it was so close after The Last Jedi. It just came and went, and I missed it entirely. I didn't see that until September. A friend of mine showed it to me. I thought that movie was fantastic. I don't know why people were so underwhelmed by it. I'd rather do a video on Solo than on Rise of Skywalker. Like, I think The Last Jedi and Solo are the best two movies from this from the Disney versions of Star Wars. Those two movies. And Force Awakens and Rogue One are pretty good. And then Rise of Skywalker is just kind of, I don't care. I don't know. I just, I've said it from the beginning. I think Star Wars should be over. Last Jedi did enough to make me think there might be some gas left in this tank, but Rise of Skywalker just sort of proved to me that, like, there's nothing to do here. I don't know, but I haven't seen The Mandalorian yet, so I didn't really do much in terms of Star Wars television. So I don't know. I've heard there's a much richer life outside of the films. We'll see. Maybe I'll see at some point. I don't know. Julian asks, would you do a spin-off of Dragon Ball Dissection concerning video games? Well, like I said in that earlier question, I'm not really big into Dragon Ball games for the most part. I had all three of the Budokai games. I still have them. I just haven't really touched them in years. Mostly because most of them are fighting games, and I don't really care for fighting games all that much. They're just not really my thing. I don't know, just licensed games in general aren't really usually my thing. They're not usually all that great. So it's not really my area of expertise. So I never rule anything out. If someone could find a way to really get me invested in all these Dragon Ball games, maybe. But I mean, even going back to the old ones, like the ones on the Famicom, was like card-based. I hate card-based battling. I don't know. It doesn't really do much for me. Maybe some of the RPGs. Geekdom 101 was kind enough to give me Xenoverse 2 for a Switch. I played it for like a day and I got bored with it. I just don't really care for Dragon Ball video games. They don't interest me. But I'm assuming you're asking about Dragon Ball video games. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to doing like a review or a dissection series based around video games in general, or other video games I care about. But that is one of those sort of we'll see when what I can figure out with that. But Dragon Ball games, most likely not, unless I find one that really really speaks to me. But don't hold your breath on it, I guess I should say. Julie asks, will you be trying to review any other series now that Batman is over? Yes, I would love to. I mean, I do not want... I've never wanted to be exclusively Dragon Ball focused. I didn't really do anything Dragon Ball related for several months into my channel, and Dragon Ball Dissection didn't begin until I've been doing this channel for about 3 years. But obviously it's been one of the most popular things I've done, and I really enjoy doing Dragon Ball Dissection, so it's become a really big part. I never expected it to last as long as it has, honestly. I just figured it'd be, the next project of, many other projects I'm working on. So I would love to figure out what the next thing is, or not even the next thing, not as not even necessarily I finish Dragon Ball dissection, then I move on to something else, but just more things for my channel to do, more variety in it, like I feel like I used to have a bit more of. I've just been racking my brain trying to figure out what that would be. I would love to do something else, another type of dissection. I feel like that has some brand recognition at this point. But I guess the problem would be just finding the right fit for that material. Something that I'm well-versed, knowledgeable enough in that I could do a long-form review series of. And also another concern would be just always trying to avoid copyright problems on YouTube, So, I mean, like, Dragon Ball was like the magic property for me in terms of this kind of format, because it's a series I've been into for a very long time. So I know it really well. It's a it's a foreign language property, so a lot of facts can be obscured. But I have like wonderful resources like Kanzenshu and people related to that site, who who really know and have access to a lot of that material. So it's easier to fact check things. So I don't really know what I would do next. There's certainly a lot of possibilities. So aside from another dissection type series, I'd love to do smaller, sillier things too, like I sort of started out doing in a sense. Things that don't necessarily lend themselves to in-depth analysis. I mean, we still have Dragon Ball. It's not a deep story, but it is a serialized, long-form narrative type thing. So you can see where you get a lot of mileage out of analyzing its story. But I don't know. I loved a video I made about 8 or 9 years ago from the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. I'd love to do more Mario-related things, be it games or more of the cartoons, because I grew up loving those cartoons, and the comics, the Valiant comics, Super Mario Brothers, and the Super Mario Brothers Adventures, Super Mario Adventures they did at Nintendo Power. Just some great stories that really sort of fleshed out the Mario world in different ways. So I thought that was a really funny review I did of that one episode. So I'd love to do some more. I've completed my collection of all the Super Mario cartoons, and like the 1986 Mario anime movie, which I think has Furuya Toru, Yamcha's voice actor, playing Yamcha, if memory serves. It's been a couple years since I watched it, but I think that might be the case. I'd love to share my love of more obscure things, or obscure to my audience, like Facts of Life. I did a couple of videos on that several years ago. Just small things, tying them into other, like the Facts of Life Star Trek 3 conspiracy and Facts of Life Goonies conspiracy. Just a way. I just haven't been able to find a hook to make that entertaining to a wide audience. I don't want to just do here's a review of this 30-minute sitcom plot. I just don't think you guys would find that terribly interesting. So I'm just trying to find. I'd love to do stuff like, like weird sitcoms or, smaller projects as well. I just got to find a way to make it fun, make it worth your while. That's what I've been trying to figure out. All right, Bruno asks, favorite Dragon Ball movie. I've mostly said this when I've covered the movies. I think my favorite one with the Z label has been the second one, the World's Strongest Guy, and my favorite of the original run was Sleeping Princess and Devil's Castle. If I had to choose just one of them, it'd probably be Sleeping Princess. I just have a lot of fondness for that movie. I love the gothic horror aesthetic to it. I love the way that I feel it serves as a really good jumping off point if you want to get people into Dragon Ball. I've gotten people into Dragon Ball through that movie before. It's just, it really captures a lot of the character traits and the humor and the adventure and action of early Dragon Ball. And I think it really, I don't know, that good Goku Krillin interplay going on, I think is fantastic. So, that movie has a really special place in my heart. The Parappa asks, Is or was there ever a part or topic of DVD Dragon Ball Dissection that you had a hard time talking about, or that you really didn't look forward to, but you had to talk about it? I'm sure there are tons of them that I just can't really think of right now, but the one that always immediately comes to mind is anytime anybody asks me something along those lines is the Piccolo Daimo arc Part 6, which is the Mr. Popo episode. I'd been dreading that one ever since I started the series, just because I like to analyze things, but and I certainly don't mind expressing controversial opinions. But I mean, we're talking about controversial opinions about a cartoon for children. Where the controversial opinion is, I call the character Bluma. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, who cares, But when I started Dragon Ball Dissection, it was maybe like a year or two out, no, somewhere in that area, from Blue Popo on the CW, where it's like I'd grown up watching Dragon Ball Z in the '90s on Toonami, and it's like Mr. Popo's appearance wasn't a problem, and now suddenly local things and the Viz manga had been edited out his lips the entire time. So, but so that kind of treads out of arguing about battle powers or who's your favorite character into really it's real problematic issues of racial sensitivity, and that's something that I would prefer to tread very carefully around. I have no interest or intention of offending people. I certainly have my opinions, and I try to stick by them, and I try to be informed and reasonable. But that's not a topic I ever want to be too controversial on. But I knew, given those types of alterations that people felt were necessary, that it was something I couldn't just not mention. And it's probably an episode of Dragon Ball Dissection that I'm not sure if I've ever gone back and watched that one again. I will admit, I sometimes go back and watch my own videos. I'm not that egomaniacal, but sometimes I do enjoy watching my own videos. I'm like, okay, yeah, that was pretty good. I liked that. Or, oh god, I can't believe I made a mistake there. I beat myself up over that. But that one, I don't really go back and watch. Even though, from what I've noticed in comments through then and in the almost 6 years since then, I feel like I've gotten a lot of positive feedback, especially from people of color, which which was a relief to me. It's more of a what if, like, oh, what if I said something that I regret now, kind of thing. Hopefully that's not the case. Like I said, it doesn't seem to be, but I was definitely stressed out about it at the time. And finally, Lulu1997 Master asks, what do you think about having an audience? Which I think is a really good question. It's a really interesting question. It's a really multi-layered question. Because anybody who knows me knows that my degree was in theater. I performed on stage. I performed in a few small films. And so, like, on stage, you do have an audience, and you are trying to, but it's a very different kind of audience than I have here, for a couple of reasons. One, they're opposites. They're opposite types of audiences in a way, really, because on stage it's that instant feedback. You can read an audience you can tell if they're along with you or not, but at the same time, while you can physically see them in front of you, at least for me, they're not really that noticeable. They're a force. They're a feedback force, but they're not really people in that moment. I'm focused on what I'm doing, on what I'm saying, the character, the situation. Because, obviously, if you're acting from a real place, there is no audience to your character. It's, you're there. Obviously, as an actor, you're aware of your audience. But it's kind of through well, it's on the other side of the fourth wall, you could say. They're there, but they're not there. They're immediate feedback, but they're really just off in a different world from the world you're in, kind of thing. And I'm not going to lie, audience meet and greets, I'm never terribly comfortable with. I just don't really know how to interact with, because they didn't come. I mean, some people will come to see me, but generally they came to see this show, and the character that I played is what hopefully interested them. So it's like, what do I now, as a person, how do I interact with them? What do I say to them? How do I not disappoint them? How do I, So it's a different so an audience here with you guys, it's different because I don't really see you. You see me sometimes. You hear my voice. We interact through the keyboard mostly. So there's a much more direct interaction in that sense, less immediate but more direct. That you'll leave comments and I will read your feedback directly. And oftentimes I will respond to it. You ask me questions, and I try to answer them. I'm a fairly introverted person, honestly, and I'm not huge into big crowds. The few times I've gotten to see my viewers in person have been fantastic experiences, and I love seeing them. So it's. I don't know. I really feel like what encapsulates the answer to that question best right now is the Discord server on my for my patrons for $1 a month. And I'm not trying to make this sound like an advertisement, but just trying to get the information out there. For $1 a month, any tier, $1 a month and over, gets access to this server. I've never used Discord before, but that's what I heard all the cool kids do nowadays. At people's advice, I put that as a reward. But I never used it before, and I kind of had to give myself a basic crash course before I went public with it. But it does kind of feel like a different sort of engagement than I'm used to with people who view my videos. And hopefully, because I'm still figuring things out. I have people who tell me all the time, like, oh, why isn't this feature available? Or, oh, why haven't you done this? Or made this? And I'm like, because I didn't know that was a thing. You want me to do that? I can do that. So hopefully they find my bizarre befuddlement of interest, or quaint, humorous, and not just annoying and out of touch. But it just feels a little bit different from a normal forum for me, because it is sort of focused around my channel and my videos, and I don't really know how to best interact. I always remember this interview that Chris Soros, the webmaster of DBZ Uncensored, did back in 2011, 10 years after he shut down his site, saying that he had like a forum or something, and he felt weird because he felt like all the people in it sort of acted in a deferential manner to him, wouldn't engage him the same way they would the other people in the forum, because he was the attraction, he was the webmaster, he was the person, the focal point, and so his strategy, what it started as a strategy, was to show that he wasn't any different from anybody else. He started being vaguely antagonistic towards them, in a way to just sort of say, hey, look, we're all people here. We all, have to treat me with any kind of reverence, because I'm just gonna, screw around anyway. But apparently it kind of blew up in his face, where he just became nothing but this ball of antagonism towards people who were there because of him. And that's always kind of stuck with me, where it's like I don't really know the best way to. But I'm learning. I'm trying to learn. I don't want my Discord server to be a ghost town. But I also, I think so far it's been okay. I don't really feel that much pressure to be the most interesting person in the room when I log on to the server. I don't really get the impression that people are necessarily looking to me to always be on all the time. But I am certainly trying to be more engaged in that and talk to you guys more directly. So I'm trying. I'm not perfect at it, but it is kind of a new area of interacting with you guys for me. Truth be told, I'm really used to both on stage and here of this kind of interaction of everything I say to you guys is scripted. I write it down first and then I send it off. I get to think about it. The things I write in my videos for the most part. So just having a simple conversation. It's like, I don't know. It's something I gotta get used to, and I hope I'm doing a decent job. So, yeah, it is still kind of surreal to have an audience. To go back to what I said about meeting some of you guys in person, that was probably the most surreal thing. It was very, humbling and very flattering, and yeah, you guys don't know how much I appreciate you. I really, really do. And just how much it makes my day to think that anybody is excited to listen to random garbage that spews out of my mouth or would be excited to see me in person. I hope I'm interesting. And you guys really brighten my day. So what do I think about having an audience? I love you guys. And I'm very, very lucky, especially right now, when I've pretty much been trapped in this house for a week and have barely seen anybody at all. Don't know when or if my job's going to reopen again. So I hope all you guys are staying safe, are getting to spend time, getting to know your families better. Hopefully everything will be back to normal soon. Just take care of yourselves, take care of each other, make smart decisions. And I will see you guys soon in the next video and all the other videos to follow. Thank you for your wonderful questions. Thank you for your support. If you aren't a patron but like to be and are able to, especially in these times right now, patreon.com/MistareFusion. Even just $1 a month would help if you can. But take care of yourselves. So thanks. Love you guys. See you later.
Thank you for tuning in to this broadcast of the I'm Trapped at Home Q&A special, brought to you in part by viewers like these who support on Patreon, as well as viewers who like, comment, and subscribe. Please stay tuned for upcoming episodes of Dragon Ball Dissection on this channel.